Well, actually, in those days, I'm not talking about those days, I'm taking you back just to 90s. So the attention was more focused on delivering the curriculum, as Dr. Phineas mentioned before. It's all about getting the curriculum so that you get a safe doctor out of the medical school. So the priority was not research during my days. Well, I know that I'm sitting here in a different place, but I could imagine the number of medical school obviously has increased. You can imagine the number of students who are there, and each one of you, as I say, enlightened mind, you just come up with an idea, you just can take it to the next level. But sometimes it takes time. So what I'm going to talk about is here how to read a paper, okay, so scientific paper, medical journals, right? How to write an article, and what are the different aspects that surrounds that, okay? Read the article, just go back and see what they are conveying. Is it properly, researched? And so the methodology, okay? So we'll talk about it. So there has to be an old adage, which I'm saying old adage because publish or perish is something we always talk about. This for the scientific community. You have to publish your work. Otherwise, you don't exist in the scientific community. You just become minuscule, right? Now, that thing has slowly changed now. We're talking about impact or perish. So what I talk now and what impact it has on you guys, that's going to change the way how you think about it. I'm a first-year medical student. It doesn't matter. There are first-year medical students starting a project straight away because they know what to do, or somebody is guiding them what to do. So that's how things have changed now. Well, I know the talk is focused on medical students. This is for global medical student community, just not for India. It's not for UK. It's for every part of the world, because I think it's absolutely important to know what these journals actually talk about, how much weightage they carry about, and all this stuff. So let's see. I think this is an important article which was published in BMJ, just to say how do you read a scientific paper. Our article should be, you can't have emotions when you're writing. You just have to call a spade a spade. You have to get your ideas very organized. It has to be politically right, because you can't offend people around the world who can take things in whatever way they like. We are a very gullible society, aren't we? We just believe what is passed on to us because it comes from X, Y, Z. Then that's it. It's taken for granted, and that's etched in stone. But the point, what I want to say is, if I can write article, you can write too, and it's never too late or never too early. Now, just a bit about H-index and ITIN index. So I just mentioned, would this become a future passport for researchers and doctors? So actually, H-index, yeah, for medical students, H-index and Hirsch index, it's based on scientific, what your article's impact is about and how many people do cite your articles and all this stuff. So that's H-index. Now that's again sort of very widely used across the globe. To be a professor, you need to have a H-index of at least more than 30. Now, what are we talking about here? So you're talking about your work, which is a PhD, which gets published it's a big journal, and your articles get read by so many other scientists across the globe, and they feel that there is something very important in the article, and they cite your article. So essentially, what happens is the work that you produced gets cited by so many people, so you get a better H-index, right? The I-index is created by the search engine, obviously, Google Scholar. So there's this is about, again, the number of articles that you've written get cited, and eventually your number grows, right? So there is always a discrepancy in the number of, the numbers, what you get from ITIN and H-index. But I wouldn't be very surprised if in the future, well, we are doctors, we don't need to have H and I indices. But there will be a time where, you probably have to prove that you're better. Well, entrance exam is one, competitive exams to screen people who are very, very good at what we believe that they know the subject. And then you move them to the next stage. Then you get into post-graduation and you just graduate, and then you go on and practice in the community. Well, it is an important thing that I want you to think about now, because, when I asked for a CV, yes, I landed here with a one-page CV with nothing in it more than apart from the medals, what you mentioned before. But as time passed by, you're being judged by the scientific community by the number of research work that you do. And it's very difficult because there is a lot of practicalities involved in it. And I can imagine if the priority is not about being a professor in an academic institute, you would just be bothered about focusing on your clinical work, progressing your technical skills, and learning more art, surgery. I'm just focused on surgery, but it applies to everything. It applies for all specialties, right? So it's something which I want you to think about. There is a lot of pros and cons. As I said, there are two sides to the coin. So you have to be really careful about looking at a item index to say, wow, that's amazing. I could cite my own article and get more numbers, but that's not right, is it? Well, laureate Randy Sheckman, he declared that he's going to boycott all the prestigious journals because he felt that they were damaging science. And he's not the only top tier scientist who acknowledges this, but a lot of people do agree. But I want this healthy debate to go on because I don't want the medical students to get biased by what is out there. So just always think about and know both sides of the coin, okay? Well, what type of research do we have? So let's come on to the evidence, what we have. We practice evidence-based medicine, right? We don't take anything, just like that, but there are levels of evidence. So what we're talking about is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels of evidence, and the foundational evidence, which is your ideas, your speculation, and then comes the seniority and your experience in the field of medicine, as Dr. Finney mentioned about organophosphate poisoning. We don't see that in the Western world very often, more often in the place where you get farmers getting easy access to the organophosphates for using it as pesticides, right? So personal observation becomes more of an expert opinion. From level 5, it gets to level 4, where you get 2 or 3 cases together and it gets published as case series. And then as a medical student, what can I do? Well, I know that you probably maybe in dermatology, psychiatry, obs and gynae, whatever specialty you are, but just my sincere advice is just to understand the basics of what specialty you're posted in at this point in time. Then you probably have lots of questions in mind. So we have moved on, so from dedicated lectures, we have now gone to more, the students are not like spoon-fed anymore. Now you got access to internet, so you can find whatever you want. You have access to textbooks online. So yeah, there's a lot of resources available now. A little word about the word audit. I know it's sort of very prevalent terminology. Now it's getting more and more practically used everywhere. So audit is something where you are practicing in a world where you compare it to a standard and you say how much you can improve from that, what we call benchmark. And then you change your practice and then you close the loop. So audit is a cycle. Audit is very important because it's so easy when you say you find a suitable topic to do an audit, then that audit can be potentially presented and published. Bang on, that goes in your CV, that your CV builds up. So I look after what we call the foundation junior doctors in the neurosurgical training. So I sit down with each and every one of them, maybe a few who are listening to it today too. So, but I just go through their CV. So, how do I make one? Well, you just make your CV, see what you're good at and put things up there. And if I ask you what you want to be in the future, the question is, I'm not sure because medicine is so vast. But it's okay not to know what you want to do. But if you don't have the passion to seek what you want to do, you really won't be there anywhere. So you'll be finishing a medicine. Of course, you'd get a top class score. And then by default, you just go into post-graduation and eventually you won't know what you're going to do. Well, I would say, I think you should all start writing in the sense like, write your ideas. When you're in your clinics, just go home. What we used to do is just sit down in a small notebook, write on what case we saw that day. And that's there in my mind. I still remember. Yes, I did mention about self-directed learning. So you get motivated, you get inspired by your professor, by your teacher, and you just go home and read about it. And you just say, well, that is very interesting. I've never come across this before. And then you say, well, then you just dwell more into it. Now, the situation currently, we are connected around the world with webinars, right? So make use of the webinars. All the international meetings puts up their, the top quality speakers or anybody who's presenting, everything is online now. So you can actually click onto those and you can actually read the gist or even just know the gist of what it is there. You come up with your idea. Yes, of course, it's going to change the world, but it could take a while, right? So don't underestimate when you say medical student, you're writing different things, and well, that's how it builds up. This is a very important article. I wrote this interesting blog, which is very, very interesting because he talks about we have about nearly 40,000 journals. Can you believe it or not? He says 20 to 30,000. I think I'm sure there are more. There are more than 40,000 medical journals there. So that is a massive number. So obviously you have to write something. Now, what he's talking about is, so let me show you the, so what he concludes from this blog is medical journals are now a poor way to publish science, but they can perform well with the function traditionally associated with mass medias in terms of campaigning, investigating, setting an agenda, and leading a specific, a research, a research gate. Yeah, so we all know research gate. So they accept, articles, and you can just log in there and you can say that I'm from this part of the world and I published this, and this is my, this is my idea. So you don't have to pay for that, right? So people who cannot submit their article, which are ISI, well, it's not Indian Standard Institute, it's International Scientific Information, gathering database, which actually helps you to recognize a specific journal. So you need to pay for it. So most of the top journals, do not charge any money for your publication, but there are now and now more what we call open access. Well, I want my article to be read by everybody, so it should be freely available. But then you can say, well, I'm from some part of the world where I don't have library where I can just get in or even have an e-access to a journal. So my work is not getting read. So what do I do then? Well, that's something which we need to think about. So obviously, you are surrounded by, um, you know, uh, people who are relatively knowledgeable people around in whatever caliber they are, being a fourth year medical student or being an intern, postgraduate, professor, assistant professor, whatever. So, there are a lot of help around you, but we don't ask for it. So we don't seek the answer what we need. So what can you do as a medical student? Well, I did speak about, going and presenting what you want in international meetings. We can start with something as simple as, writing a letter to the editor, right? So I always thought writing a case report is easy. Anybody can do it. You can just write your opinion, but case report is, as we know, it's the lowest level of evidence. But then letter, again, it's your own opinion. So they are lowest level of evidence available. But then if your idea is so unique, then you're going to inspire another team. Then that's going to lead to another one. And eventually you'll find a, randomized controlled trial that's being, done based on what you actually thought about several years later. So review articles, yes, it's, you can pick any topic and then you can just go on the, what we call medical database, PubMed, Medlar, there's so many Cochrane database. So you can go on to a lot of these databases and you can just keep looking at things, what is new and what are things that have changed, and you can come up with your conclusion. So meta-analysis and on. And there are a lot of softwares available now. We didn't have them before. EndNote, Mendeley, or Studio. These are different software that will help you to just collate your information, just make it more refined, and then you analyze it, and that's your paper. You don't have to go and meet patients. You can just read, published articles, and you can just do a meta-analysis, which is good. Technical notes, yes, and then comes a randomized control trial. So you need to know that. You need to know that these are the things. This is your path for research, and this is what it all entails. Now, yes, statistics. Tell me about it. I still don't understand it. That's the truth. We have so much of advancement. There's an SPSS software. There's a lot of, so don't be deterred by the idea of statistics and you being involved in research, because there are statisticians in your institute who can actually help you, and you need to acknowledge them, and that's absolutely important. I want you to think beyond, because the reason I'm saying this is because you have to keep your mind completely open, and you need to be absolutely, what should I have, lateral thinking. It's something which I developed. I'll tell you how I developed. That's when all the extracurricular and co-curricular activities come into picture. So find a way, ask questions, ask them to just help you. And if they don't know, they will go find out answers for you. You know, we're not like born researchers, we're not born leaders. We eventually learn to be one. So when you learn the idea, then you just disseminate the idea to the rest of the team or to the other students. People, you're constantly looking for inspiration from people around. Now, I have to thank my current trainees now in Edinburgh for coming up with this. I know this is more into neurosurgery. We have rolled out sort of a survey among neurosurgical trainees in the UK and Irish Republic to see, do they have enough support as mentors to come and help you? We came up with something very interesting. And of course, thanks Marco for that, promoting Padawans, yes, you know, the Star Wars and Jedi and all this stuff. But, you know, eventually what we have here is an allocated educational supervisor. So I would be in charge of, say, about 5 or 10 trainees. So I can imagine, say you are in a medical school, you are in charge of a specific team. There are about hundreds of students. You have to divide that to make sure that you have some sort of supervision for a group of team. I'm sure it is happening around the world. Someone has to be affable, available, and able. So you need to have those three A's to deliver what you really want to deliver to your trainees as a teacher. So it's absolutely vital. I'm happy to share this once it gets published, but that's a different talk in total. Now, I'm just going to show you, again, this is all pertaining to neurosurgery. These are letters written to one of the top journals, well, call it high impact factor, written by close friends, colleagues, junior trainees, medical students, right? So this one, how soon I can fly after neurosurgery, after having an operation. Nobody has written about it. This was like 2017. I know I'm talking about my specialty. It's still very young specialty. But yes, strange topics. I never talk about, but people, when you're consenting patients for spinal operations, you know, you have to talk about these. That topic came up by one of the junior trainees. You know, I was commendable. It just went straight to the, you know, for publication neurosurgery. Balance groups. This was recent, and thanks Akash for that. So when you are very open-minded, so you are in psychiatry, Balance group is a part of psychiatry training, by the way, where they sit down and talk to the trainees. The senior trainee sit down with the junior trainee to say, well, these are my difficulties I encountered seeing or treating this patient. And then the junior trainee learns from it. So this is called Balance group. So I was thinking, why can't we just bring Balance groups to neurosurgery? Well, is it possible? Well, they are different specialties, but the concept itself was quite novel. It went straight again for publication. Out stress. I keep saying this because this is my first lecture for all my trainees when they come to neurosurgery, mindfulness and neurosurgical training. Well, I cannot make people get a black belt in karate in one day. I cannot make a trainee to become a good doctor if they're not calm, if they're not composed, if they're not able to control their mind. You can't be, you know, what we call a better person, right? You can be a successful doctor, but you're going to get stressed, and you're talking about myocardial infarction happening in 30-year-olds. This never happened to me in the past, but now, yes, you're too stressed. So much information overload. And that explains why our attention span is less than 9 seconds, because we have too much in front of us. We can't really decide. And our mind just gets, you know, you get a brain freeze from it. But anyway, so I've just mentioned visualize, yeah? So I'll talk about it again. Have your extracurricular activities and try to nurture it. You want to be holistic, and you don't become holistic by yourself. You just seek what makes you happy. Medicine is one form of delivering your passion, helping others, right? Well, this applies to nursing specialty. This applies to whatever you. I'm coming to the end of this presentation. So it's not the numbers that matter, but it's just a quality, right? If you think that I'm a medical student, what am I going to change? But you can change, because if you read a lot of novels, you have your mind is, you know, stories, articles, keep reading. So I would say probably the easiest thing for you to do is just get abstracts of articles from different journals. Just read it, just